thank you, BIC, for continuing this collaboration with Vikalp Bengaluru online. Although we really missed the screenings at the center, especially for this film in the wonderful auditorium. So the screening, this film is, it's a real shame that we have to see it on a laptop, but thank you nonetheless. And I'll give a brief introduction to Audrius. You'll find his CV or bio up on the BIC site, and if you Google his name, you'll find a bunch of films, over 20 films that he's done, many of which have won awards at film festivals all over the world. And one of them, The Earth of the Blind, won the Best European Documentary. And Audrius is no stranger to India. He comes here often. On a personal note, I met him a couple of times, once briefly at the Mumbai International Film Festival, where he was a member of the jury, and another time at this workshop for documentary pitching, and Audrius was one of the facilitators. I was a participant. Thank you, Audrius, for coming, for being generous enough to screen your film, for joining us for the discussion. The way we'll do it is I'll ask you a couple of questions and you can respond. If the audience wants to come in with questions, then maybe we can pause and go to their questions. Otherwise, we'll carry on with some more questions and then come, if they have further questions, we'll come back to them later. So my first question, which I had actually put to you earlier, was, of the 4 films of yours that I have seen, and unfortunately we don't have access to too many over here in India, but of the 4 questions that I have seen, 3 of them are about protagonists who lead rather solitary lives. So we have, in this film, Woman on the Glacier, we have Ausra, who's the glaciologist, and Ramin, very briefly for the audience who may not have seen it, it's about a wrestler, a Georgian wrestler he's very self-sufficient. He's won many wrestling championships, and he's too proud to profess his love to his childhood sweetheart of 50 years ago. He's 75. And then he suddenly feels lonely and he wants to find her at age 75. And so he goes in search of her, but otherwise he lives on his own. Then there's the film Countdown, which features the filmmaker, the Lithuanian filmmaker Augustinas, and he is living in a home, so he's not living on his own, but he doesn't seem to want to interact with any of the other people. And the title also refers to the countdown to his days when he'll pass. So he's not in good times. So what draws you to characters like that? Why is it that you decided to make these films? And obviously it's not a coincidence. I think maybe in some of your other films also you have protagonists of that kind. So what draws you to people like that?
These questions bring us actually to a very important question, why we are doing films and why we need films. The way I see it, that the happy people, they do not need films because they can live with their life. They're full of friends and people who love them, and the life is full of joy, and it's even more interesting than cinema. I think cinema and films are needed in the moments when we feel lonely, and then when we feel insecure, something, and then we need this. And these films, they give us kind of hope or encouragement, or give us a different perspective to something that we experience. And as you rightly noticed, that most or many of my characters, they are lonely, but I also want to draw your attention that all these characters, they are lonely, but they are satisfied. They are happy with their loneliness. And this paradox, I think it's very important for me.
Mm-hmm.
This woman, she chose by herself. She was not forced to go to this mountain. And she chose the life that for us, it's difficult even imagine. How can you live, so high in the mountains, in this cold, in really severe circumstances, totally alone, without any connection with the world. And at the same time, she enjoys the loneliness. So for me, because it's not, I'm not trying to be a teacher or teach somebody or say something to, these films are also, I learned a lot for myself. And this character taught me how to accept loneliness. It may sound banal, but we were born alone, we die alone, and in the deep inside of us, deep in our soul, we are lonely. So we probably, the saying that the art is teaching us to die. But at the same time, I think the art also teaches us to accept loneliness, not to fight, not to fall into desperation or sadness, but to accept as a bliss, as something that where we could live and create our own world. So for me, it is these characters, they create their own worlds there, and they live in this, from my point of view, beautiful world, no matter how difficult or the circumstances are.
Yeah, it's certainly, that seems to be the case with the protagonist of this film, Ausra, the glaciologist. Is that true, you think, even of Ramin? He seems to be, in search of something that he misses. He's in search of his childhood sweetheart and is distressed by the fact that he's not being able to find her. And it perhaps is also not really true of Augustinas, because, and I don't know the characters in the other films, but of those two, perhaps it's a little less true to say that they're content in their solitariness. They're seeking company which is not coming, of a kind that maybe they're not finding. So perhaps not all of them are happy in that. But certainly with Ausra, she, even when she's leaving, she looks back like that at the mountains. I mean, you think there's a little bit of relief on her face, but she just looks back wistfully like that at the mountains. So
you're right. She's missing. But also Ramin, she theoretically, maybe that's a pressure of the society, because everybody asks me, why are you 75 years old? Where is your wife? Where is your lover? Why there is no woman in your life? And he is kind of accept this and say, oh yeah, maybe I should try to find. But deep inside, I think it's impossible. And you feel in the film that it would be, and can you imagine him finding this lady who is 80, now she's 8 years old, because she was 5 years older than him.
Yeah.
Coming to this small house of him. It's impossible. It's like an impossible dream. So he tries to do that, but deep inside, I think he understands that he will be lonely, that this will never happen. And maybe he even likes wants to have this dream more than real woman Sveta Turmanidze entering his life. And the same, the countdown, where he said, yes, he's lonely. And maybe it's not so easy to live the way he lives, but at the same time, he said, I would never change anything in my life because I have my freedom. Maybe I would have more nice life, more rich life, but I would lose something which is so important for me, my freedom.
So we have a question related to this from Indu Krishnan, and she says, what are the challenges in capturing the pleasures of solitude as a filmmaker when you land up there with the crew? And
Yes.
and the other question, which I was also going to ask you, do you engage with the protagonist or do you try and remain silent? Do you direct them at all or capture everything as it happens? Because you don't, I think the only interaction with Ausra is actually off camera. We hear her voice once where she's talking about that Lithuanian trekkers coming there and she serves up some.
Right.
But otherwise, there's never any kind of interaction with you or anybody with the crew.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. It's a very, very good question, because it really shows the paradox. You're trying to explore the loneliness, but at the same time, with the film crew, you destroy that loneliness. So how can you film loneliness? Then you come there with the cameras, crew, light, sound, everything. So it is very, very. You have to be very gentle, not to destroy, and you have to. At the beginning, I thought I will be talking with Ausra, maybe because I was interested as a human being. For me, it was very interesting how she deals with the loneliness, how she deals with this circumstance, how she makes food, and I thought she could tell me very interesting things. But then I thought, okay, this would totally destroy the film, because that would be a different film about some Lithuanian filmmaker who comes to the mountains and interviews her. So the only way to deal with the situation was that I have to be invisible. Or better to say, it's not that I decided this. She decided. She said, I'm not going to talk with you on the camera.
I see.
She said, and I have 4 expeditions, and she was usually what in the filmmaking, you go closer to your character. With every expedition, with every day, you go closer and closer. In this film was an opposite. The first expedition, we were not allowed to speak with her. She said, I'm not going to talk with you. But still we could have close-ups. The second exposition, she said, don't shove this camera to my face. I don't want this. So the second expedition, I had only wide shots. The third expedition, actually, we filmed only the landscapes with her. And the fourth expedition, she refused to appear in front of camera in any kind.
How often do you go? Just four times?
4 times, because it's it's only possible to go there during the summer, very short. It's end of May and beginning of August. So June, July, otherwise this place is unreachable. It's covered with snow and it's a very dangerous path, a lot of cracks and on the rivers under the ice, and it's not possible to reach this place. So you can reach, then the ice melts at the end of May, and you have to immediately leave. Then the first snows starts to fall. Otherwise, you will be stuck for the rest of the
next 6-8 months. So actually, we have a volley of questions about loneliness, which perhaps we should take now before going forward. I just wanted to ask you, the earlier archival footage is not shot by you, right? Is that also your footage or somebody else's? No, that's somebody else's. Okay.
No, but this is interesting because I didn't know if I am going to use this. It was not in my idea from very beginning. But then I was filming this. I thought it might be. It was a very important glaciological station in the Soviet Union, one of the most important stations. So I thought, okay, it should be something in the archives. So I went to the Geographical Institute of Kazakhstan and asked them if they have films. But I still was not sure. I thought maybe for my own knowledge, I would need to research this footage. And then I was watching this footage. I noticed the shots of the cat, the small cat, and the small dog playing exactly the same way as these 2, cat and dog. And then I was really moved because the small pup. Sometimes people ask, is this the same couple?
That's
I
right.
say no, because they are shot 50 years ago.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
So then I thought, okay, it's a magical place. Nothing changes there.
Yeah.
50 years ago, the small cat playing with each other, and after 50 years, the circle, it's still the same happening. So that was the very important motivation for me to show, how times goes by, but actually nothing changes in this place.
So let me just quickly ask you some of the other questions that have come up about this. Lakshmi asks, you seem fascinated with loneliness. Are any of your other films, I think she must have missed the earlier part of the discussion. So so he has spoken about a couple of other films where the characters are, well, solitary, if not lonely. Usha says she loved the film. She's curious about what it is that about you that lets these loners into their lives. What is it about you that lets them take you into their lives? Maybe I should just ask the other two and then you can respond to all three. Yamuna asks, do you differentiate between loneliness and aloneness? And then Lakshmi says, how did she come to love loneliness? Was it her parents or her siblings, early life? Did you find out at all, or did you talk to her about that? I mean, would you say
Yes.
she's lonely firstly, or is it more alone or solitary? She's the one of the three characters I've seen who maybe I wouldn't call lonely.
Maybe I will start from the last question, then you will remind the other questions.
Sure.
Yes, you're right. I think something really happened in her life. Because sometimes we say, I would like to run to the end of the world where nobody can reach me. So we have the saying. So this is the end of the world, then nobody can reach you. And people usually, they don't choose that kind of way. For some reasons, and this was something really, really painful in her history, in her personal history.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when she was very young, her mother died, and I also know that her father lives in Lithuania. And I just mentioned that maybe I will visit your father in Lithuania. She said, if you do this, never come back to my place.
I see.
Never. Don't you dare to go there and to speak with them. So I just said, yes, I forget about it. I'm not going to do this. But something really, really painful and really, really terrible happened in their life that made her choose that kind of loneliness. And I don't know why I choose this. I am actually I am from the country with the vast landscapes and very few people. And actually, this is how we feel, and we have to deal with that, with these big, vast, empty spaces. So, while the Lithuania is not so big, but we have very few people. It's only 2.5 million living here, and mostly in the cities. So we have a lot of spaces, and that's why they naturally come into our films. And let's say the first film, the one that you can see in the link that would be shared with you, and that Gautam mentioned, The Earth of the Blind. Actually, my first independent film, was about this. If I look at this, it's about this ultimate loneliness. It's about the blind people, because they are really lonely. The rest of the world just does not exist for them. And still, there is some kind of light and some kind of hope in this. So I was fascinated, really fascinated. This, and then you you asked about this difference between loneliness and being alone. So I think they are lonely. They are alone, but they are not lonely. They have their, like this old lady in the blind. She has these animals. She has her world. She has many different things, small things, but that makes this world very harmonious and very beautiful. And sometimes we who have everything, we see everything, we have this ability to communicate, and we are really lonely in this crowd of people. So this kind of paradoxes, I think it's just interesting to explore and to see from different perspectives.
And the first question, which was from Usha, is about how is it that so many people who are, well, sort of broadly loners have let you into their lives? What is it about you that allows you to enter the lives of people like that? There is actually one other question about loneliness. It's really struck a chord with our audience, it seems. So maybe I'll ask you that after this, and then we can go on.
It's not easy to enter their life, but and then people, if they would feel, it's interesting that these people who live in the lonely world, they're really very protective of this world. They don't want this world to be destroyed. And if they would feel that I'm here just to enter and to take something that I need, they would not let me in. Why they should do this? But my attitude and my way of dealing with this is that I go there not as a filmmaker. I go there as a human being, somebody who's really interested in the way. Not to, if they would feel that I'm just professional who wants to make a film, usually the answer would be, why should I be in that film? And you cannot motivate them. Oh, this would be a great film. Many people would see this film. They say, and many times they said, I'm not interested in it. I don't want my world to be seen by many people. But the moment they feel kind of that you understand them, or you honestly and sincerely trying to understand how they live, and you're not just going there with the camera and taking everything from them, they little by little they open and they let you into their life. I go there with the promise that I will not destroy, that I will respect their loneliness. And this is something that they miss. Many people, and the same with Ausra. I know that some people go there and say, I don't know, maybe in English, I don't know how to say, I'm here to make your life more joyful. You live so lonely. You probably so you're missing the contacts. So I'm here to make your life more happy. She said, no. If I would like to be with somebody, I would go down the mountain. I would live in the city. I love my loneliness. So the main condition is that you have to respect the life. You cannot judge. You cannot propose them different ways. You cannot use their life for any reasons. You go there with the respect, and honestly, you say, I want to understand. I want to see the way you see. And then people, little by little, but they let you be part of their life.
Is that the last time she's leaving, or does she go down every summer? I mean, every winter, or is that?
No. She lives there in the winter. It's I catch the very important moment in their life, or maybe I would say tragic moment of their life, because the Kazakhstan government decided to make the army training ground in this place.
Oh gosh! Okay.
For the soldiers to be trained up in the mountains, to be able to fight in these high altitudes. And the last time I went there, the place was swarmed with the soldiers. We were, of course, we were not allowed to film them, even to point the camera to that direction. And for her, she said, for me, it's a death, because I cannot live down in the city. She suffocates there somehow. It's also very strange, because we suffocate up in the mountains, because it's very little, 30% less oxygen. She suffocates down there. But what happened? The army changed their plans, and I don't know. Maybe I hope that maybe they saw us. Maybe they noticed the importance of the station, but they changed their plans and they left. So now she lives there again. So this is what I know.
Okay, the next question is from Lavanya, and let's just take that and then go on, because that's again about something similar. She's very appreciative of the film. She says, a phenomenal film where nature talks more than humans. And she has two questions. One is, how did you manage to capture those pan shots of nature processes in a gentler way, which I think portrays the bliss of solitude? Those are her words. And as a filmmaker, how long did you take to transcend to the point of enjoying that loneliness and the extreme weather, which resonates with the character? And she's also, yeah, go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
I worked with a brilliant cameraman, my very, very close. I worked with this man, Audrius Stonys, for 13 years. And for me, it was tragedy, and not for me, for all our film society was tragedy. Then Audrius Stonys passed away very young, 44 years old. He had cancer, and 2 years ago he left us. But this was the last film we filmed together, and then that's his way, because he was really extremely talented DOP, cinematographer, who managed, actually, you can imagine, you cannot, this is like a mountain climb, like Everest expedition. You cannot bring many things there. It's too heavy, and you have to bring everything in your backpacks. So he used to create this shooting equipment from unimaginable things, from stones and wooden sticks and ropes. You could make some strange constructions from nothing, actually, from something he could find on the ground, and make this really complicated shots that usually in normal life they would demand really sophisticated shooting equipment. So he used to make this and do this. And also he was extremely patient person. He could spend, 2 days, make shot which lasts 30 seconds. But she's really the preparation, all these ropes. I couldn't understand how it works, but all these ropes, all these sticks, all these different sophisticated things that he created with his own hands. So this was him, and I as I said, I worked with him for 13 years, and I terribly miss him.
Yeah, I remember that one shot, especially where the camera goes like that, and then very slowly, and then you sort of seem to go into that that waterfall thing. Very beautiful.
It was made with the stick, with a wooden stick. This I saw how it did.
Okay, yeah, no, very beautiful. There are two more questions from not about this topic, from Basav, Biradar, and Sunanda. Let me just go ahead and then I'll come to these questions. I was going to ask you, in many of your films, you avoided having a narrative structure. And Sunanda also asked that about narrative arc and the emphasis on dramaturgy. And in fact, you've gone on to say that there are too many stories in the world and you don't trust stories. And people have, you co-directed a film, Bridges of Time, with Christine Breeder, which was about a certain movement of documentary filmmaking in Lithuania. And she wanted to actually feature you as one of the filmmakers, but instead you got into the film and then you co-directed it. What can you tell us little about that movement? Did it come as a reaction to something that came before it? What came before it? Was it like a narrative documentary like we have, like the mainstream documentary today, or was it like factual, or was it propaganda? Was it in Soviet times? I mean, what is it that you reacted to go into this more sort of poetic form?
It's an interesting question because my teachers, they are from 70s and 60s. The really great Lithuanian directors, actually, whom you also can see in this link that I sent you. Verba, Shablevičius, they used to be my teachers. And they were actually making their films in this during the Soviet occupation. And at the time of really hard censorship. And of course, it's the easiest way to censor is the words. The words you can censor. You say you don't say this, but you don't say that. Cut this out, put this in. But how can you censor the landscapes?
Sure.
It's impossible to do. So I learned actually from their films. And this is not that I don't trust the stories. I think the stories are beautiful, but I don't trust words. And the Soviet regime, but also nowadays, they really are proving every day that the words are used not to tell the truth, but actually to hide the truth or to spread the lies. So I distrusted the words. I made some films with the words, but for me, the most important is image, and because images, they don't lie. Words, they do. Images, they don't. And people, then they speak, they lie. Sometimes, or many cases, or even they don't think. Even in cases they think they don't lie, they still do. They put masks and they hide behind the words. It's the easiest way to hide to hide who you are is just to hide behind the words. But then the person is silent. How can you lie? When we still don't know how to lie, then we are silent. So that's why I really prefer to observe better than listen. And from my point of view, the cinema is the art of the literature is art of words, and the cinema is art of images. And I think this is this most important part of cinema.
So interestingly, just about censorship, we had a case in Bangalore, I think maybe it was 10, 15 years ago, when the censor board refused. We have it's called the certification board, actually, not so much censor board, but they can refuse to let you screen the film. And one of the films they didn't give that certificate, the certificate that allows you to screen it publicly, was to a film that they said they didn't understand. So, so that is sufficient reason they said, what is it about? We're not going to give you a censor certificate. Basav has another question about archives, which also I was going to come to your use of archival footage, which actually I find you've used in both the other films. In fact, in all three. The fourth one, of course, it's natural to use it because you're making a film about filmmakers and you use some of their films in your film, the one that you co-directed. But the film about Ramin and also the film about Augustinas, you used a lot of archival footage. Is that something you've done in other films? What attracts you to doing that? And Sunanda says, can you talk about how you see time in your films? So you can make what you want to that question, but let's start with archival footage.
Yes, it's very connected. Actually, I think the magic or why this cinema is so exceptional, because we can capture time. And I think this is the beauty, the magic, the miracle, anything. This ability of cinema to catch the time, to to preserve the time. And then I see this archival footage, I always so fascinated by the fact that maybe these people they're not alive anymore. Then let's say these images are shot 60 years ago, and by then maybe they were 40 or 30, so maybe they are not with us anymore, but they're still alive there. You can see them. They are still young. They still live their life, and they will live for hundreds and thousands years, as long as these images will be still playable. And for me, it is a biggest mystery and beauty of cinema. And the biggest actually purpose of the cinema, because let's say then Ausra will be not, then Ausra will die one day, but she still be living in that mountain after 50 or 60 or 100 years. And for me, this really fascinates me. So to use but the time is very difficult matter that is so, how can you film the time? It's invisible. It just passes by in a terrible speed, but how can you make it into images? And the archival footage, it really lets us capture the time. And that's why I'm so fascinated with this archival footage, because in very small in this editing cut, you actually could jump in like 40 years back, and then from there you can jump back to the present day. And I think this is absolutely fascinating game, and I'm very into it.
You've never turned the camera on yourself and used archival footage of yourself 40 years ago or 30 years ago? Have you ever made a film about yourself that?
No, actually, I have some footage of myself when I was young, but that's another question. You have to have the critical distance from the character. I don't have critical distance from myself. So that's why I cannot turn the camera to myself. I cannot make film about my father. He's a very interesting person. His history is extremely interesting, but he's too close to me. So that's why it makes me very difficult to do. So that's why I don't make films about myself literally, and I don't make about my family.
So Basav's question is also about the dog and the cat, but actually you've answered that earlier, the archival footage. And then we have Indu asking about saying, well, she says, firstly, thank you for a beautiful and mesmerizing film. And she was curious about the inclusion of the banjo player. And that is if that instrument is a banjo. And somebody else, I think Lavanya also asked that question. And why did you feel he was necessary for the film is her question. But if we could take that after a moment, because you spoke about your father, and I was going to ask you, you yourself come from a theater family.
Yes. My both parents, they are actors.
They're actors. And was that an influence to your getting into films? And also why documentary films? I mean, we tend to think of theater as being, as typically sort of classical theater or traditional theater. We think of it as like with actors and sets and a script, certainly. And many of your films, you're capturing things as they happen rather than going with some sort of pre-scripted kind of, at least in terms of the narrative arc, you don't have any preconceived notions. So,
yeah,
I mean, is it something that you feel there's a connection to, and you can answer in a way that, I mean, if you feel like it, you can answer that.
Yeah, I was playing in the theater before I was born. My mother was pregnant, and because of her forms changed, so she got a role of penguin. So I was there inside, and she was playing on the stage. And then I was born. Actually, I spent all my childhood in the theater. I was playing as if they needed a baby or a small kid. I was I was there on the stage. So for me, it was very clear that I will be an actor. But this is destiny, the play of the destiny. This year, there was no call for the actors in our theater academy, but it was called for TV directors and television directors. So I joined there, and then I met this documentary filmmaker, Henrika Šablevičius. And I was totally fascinated by this person, by the way he's about the process of the documentary film, where you don't know, where every day is discovery, and then you discover things you don't know. You start and you don't know where you end up. So I was totally taken by this, and this is how I became a documentary filmmaker. I tried to make a fiction film, but I was deeply dissatisfied with the process. I really hated to know everything in advance. I really hated to know how this will end.
Yeah.
And I really found much more fascinating to go into this adventure of the documentary filmmaking.
So, in many of your films, also you seem to have used animals. Is that was it just because they were hanging around there, or the characters they liked the animals, or they were part of their lives, or did you? Is that something you've done in many other films as well? I've noticed it only in Ramin and this one, actually.
Yeah, you can. If you will watch my films, you will see probably in all my films there are animals. I think the main and the most important thing in the documentary cinema is the sense of truth. We talked about this, about lying or saying the truth, and we are happy. We are really happy. Then we capture the moment of truth. It's strange. We live in this world, but we're so happy that we manage, and it seems so difficult to capture the truth. Because reality in front of the camera, it transforms. Suddenly it's something not true. It's a combination of masks, lies, presentations, self-presentations, and all this stuff that is so far away from the truth. And the animals are the ones who do not lie, again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting to see them and to see, because they are truthful. So it's kind of, I need them to as like I don't know, Camerton, something that you can have this glimpse of truthfulness. Yeah. So I love the way they see the world. I love how they look at each other and how they look at the camera and how they live their really truthful and natural life. So that's why I'm fascinated, really fascinated by these animals.
Many animal behavior scientists might say that, at least the more complex animals, monkeys and chimps, and they're also quite deceitful, and they trick each other and do various things. But anyway, that's okay. We won't go there. But coming to that question of the banjo player, Indu's question, and I think Lavanya's, what was the reason for including him? And
yes, the reason was very simple. I thought, I have a story. I want to tell the story, but I don't have a storyteller. She's not talking, and I don't want her to talk. So somebody has to tell the story. And I decided that maybe the song or the old legend could be the way to tell the story. And I found the old Kazakhian legend about the old witch who lived high in the mountains, and then she died. She was so powerful that actually she lived with the people, but then she was so powerful that when she died, everybody was afraid of her. So they took her very high into the mountains, and from her heart became this glacier. And they buried her really high in the mountains because they were afraid of her, even when she was dead. And I thought, oh, it's a very nice story that could really similarities with my own story, because this woman is really like cold like ice and very tough. and a little bit like a witch. And I found this musician. It's not banja. It's a different instrument, a Kazakhstan instrument. And I asked him to sing me this legend, and he started to play. And I said, "But when will you sing?" And he said, "No, I'm not going to sing. I will tell you the story with the music."
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, if my film is without words, so why can't he tell the story without words? So
you didn't want to in any. I mean, of course, I don't think you would have wanted to put those words anywhere. But Vasav's earlier question was, did you want to add some biographical details about Ausra? And I suppose that would link to you're not wanting to say in words what the song was. Samarth asks or says that it would have been an amazing experience on the large screen, and I entirely agree. And it's a real shame we're having to show it on this small laptop screen. But says, do you agree that the large screen cinema is slowly dying, which maybe one won't agree with, because at least we are trying to screen these things on a large screen as is the Bangalore International Center. Tawhid wants to know about the frozen butterfly that you fade into black. And he says it conveyed multiple messages. Why did you use that particular shot?
First of all, I don't think the white screen, the big screen, is dying, and I think it will never die. I think we are already a little bit tired of the small screens, and I think I see the opposite. I think we will want the good screens and darkness in the cinema. It's something that we miss a lot. Me, at least, I miss a lot. This big darkness and big screen, and there's something, this atmosphere that you could take totally, and you can forget. It's so difficult. It's so different. The laptop only gives the information, but the atmosphere of cinema, something that people will miss always. The theater didn't die for how many thousands years. So I think the same with the cinema. It will not die. It's like paper books. They will not die, not because they have the same information as the books, these digital books. But the digital books, they don't have the smell, they don't have the texture of the paper. And these are very important things. The same with the cinema. We will miss this, and this will. I don't think this will die. And the second question was, I forgot.
No, he was only asking about the frozen butterfly.
Oh, the frozen butterfly. Yes, it's very strange. I found this as a kind of very strange, I don't know, message or something, because there are no butterflies there. There are no insects. There are no animals. This is really very high, especially at this place where we're shooting. It was even higher than the ultralifts. It's more than 4,000 meters high. So, and suddenly we see the butterfly alive. So maybe it came with the cloud, with the wind. I don't know. Something happened. We immediately, of course, we started to film. And next morning, it was a different butterfly. But next morning we went to take water. It's a little pond where we used to take of melted ice. So where we used to take our drinking water. And then we see this frozen, the butterfly froze in the ice. And for us, it was obvious that we have to film it. It's very similar with the ocean. This is she lives like this butterfly. She lives the life somewhere where the life is in the circumstance, in the conditions that are totally hostile for the life. And she's really, everything there is like frozen. It's the world, outside world does not exist at all. You go there and it seems that the world, there is no world. It's the only world you live there. So for me, it was like, I don't like I think you have to be very careful with the metaphors, because the metaphors, they could kill your film. But this time it was not something that we created, and we saw it, and we thought, okay, we took it as a present, and we decided to shoot this.
So Tohit's question is also about butterfly fading into the black, if that's something you have something to say about.
Yes. Accidentally, then during the shot, that we were adjusting the light of the shot. The man who was doing the post-production, he just closed up aperture, and these little dots in the ice, they look like a sky. So I was really amazed, of this similarity between the sky and the earth. It's kind of, and this is also the place where it's very different. It's very, usually we see clouds above us, and this is the place where you see the clouds in front of you. They just come and they just move just in front of your eyes. They form, they disappear, they appear, and then you look at the sky, and the sky is. I never saw so many stars as in this place. It's impossible. It's like zillions of the stars you see, and then you look down and you see again the sky full of stars, but maybe in this ice. So for me, this kind of the really strange space full of magical moments. For me, it was important to capture.
So we have a few minutes left, and let me just see if we have any other questions. Otherwise, we seem to have. Okay, so Yuvraj Bajaj says that the film is extremely beautiful. It moved me to tears. What were your discussions like with your DOP before and during the film? We have only 5 minutes, though. Maybe it can be extended a bit. I don't know. Also, please tell us something about your choice to juxtapose The Musical Man, which you've already answered. So maybe just the conversation with the DOP.
Yes, I have to say that this relationship, especially in documentary cinema, relationship between the director and DOP is extremely important, because not maybe the relationship, the understanding, the mutual understanding is extremely important. In a fiction film, you can discuss every shot, you can make the storyboard, you can rehearse, you can do anything, and then you can shoot. And even the director could stand in front of look at the camera and make this shot. In documentary, is different. So during the shoot, the space and everything is changing in front of your eyes. So you cannot just push or point with your fingers, film that. So you have to have this mutual understanding. And so to answer this question very shortly, we talk a lot, and I'm saying a lot, before the shoot, and we do not say a word during the shoot. We reached by watching films, watching the photos, paintings, discussing before or during the nights or in the expedition. But when we shoot, we do not. We reach the moment of mutual understanding, and then we don't even talk with each other. I know he takes a glimpse at me, and he knows if I like the shot, if I if I'm satisfied, if I'm worried, if I'm dissatisfied. And the same me, I know, I look at him and I know what he captured. So during the shoot, you become like one body. And this is absolutely crucially important for me.
Samarth wants to know, how much time do you spend on principal photography versus the editing room? How many months did it take you to complete the filming as opposed to the editing?
The film took 2 years to film, because it's very difficult. This expedition is quite difficult, and you have, as I told you, you can only come there at certain moments, so there are pauses. And during this, I was editing. And the editing, usually for me, it's I never have this like 200, 300 hours of footage. I don't believe in this process. I don't believe when filmmakers say film endless amounts of footage and expect that the more I film, the better film will happen. Usually I have 20, 40, maximum 60 hours of footage. That's why for me, and really 60, I would say, like more like 40 hours. And that's why the editing process is for me quite easy. Mm-hmm. I know very well what I need. And this film, at the end, it was filmed in 2 weeks. Of course, it was pre-editing during the expedition, but the last was 2 weeks. We went to the old monastery in the middle of Lithuania, in the province of Lithuania, and me and editor, we closed in this monastery in the cell, and we were editing, but we were supposed to be there for 1 month, but after, I would say, 2 weeks with something, we already finished. And my editor said, "Can we not inform the producer that we already finished, because he will not pay me salary, or will pay only for 2 weeks." So we spent time going to swimming in the river, talking, but the film was completed in actually 2 weeks with something.
Okay. So we have, including the extension we've been given kindly by Lekha, we have only 5 minutes left. We've come to our 7:30. So I'll just quickly run through the other questions. One is, a short comment from Usha says, "Thank you for capturing the kind of silent relationship Ausra had with the mountain." Lakshmi says, and I don't know if you can answer this question in 5 minutes or 5 hours. She says, "How can you capture the truthfulness of happiness? So many of your films are about sadness or loneliness or aloneness, at least. And is it? Are you not?" She says, "Is the experience of happiness no longer there?" Or I ask you, "Are you not interested in that?" And is that? But you sort of answered it earlier. But if you'd like to take a go at that.
Yeah, I would say that it's a difficult question, and I don't know who could answer this in 5 minutes. But of course, actually, this is what we do in our films. We are trying to capture these moments of happiness, little moments, and we make this little by little. We just collect these moments of happiness, and this happiness is so different, and it has so many faces, and it's so interesting to explore different faces of the happiness. And of course you can, and it's so nice to find the happiness somewhere where you only can think that is desperation or hardness. And suddenly in these unexpected, most darkest places, you see the ray of light. And I think this is what the cinema is about. We're looking the light in the darkness. That's what we do, and what this is the purpose of our profession and our art of documentary cinema.
So I'm just going to move on because we will quickly do the other two questions. One is from Indu. She asks about the funding. How on earth did you find funding for such a subtle and in some ways demanding film in today's world of Instagram and Netflix? But it wasn't in today's world. It was some time ago. And maybe within the Baltic states, that movement of a certain kind of cinema might have helped in, but yeah, sorry, I shouldn't be answering it for you. Would you like?
Very quickly, it's not easy, I would say, but we have this kind of still understanding that the documentary cinema is not a part of the journalism and not a part of the entertainment business, but this is part of art, like a theater, like a literature, the same with the documentary cinema. That's why it's easier to convince people that your film not necessarily should bring the huge box offices, but still it's important because it's a piece of art. So this is what I can say. And there are some space for that kind of cinema also in European and the United States markets. So still not big, it's a niche, but still, if you put an effort, you can find also financing, even in televisions like Arte, La Lucarne, and different places, but not so many.
So I think we should make this the last question, Ramanis, and you have 2 minutes on, unless Lekha cuts you off. How did you arrive at the aesthetics of the filming, the character's perspective of yours, and both are different. So I'm not. You can make what you want to that question. How did you arrive at the aesthetics?
I live in the country of beautiful landscapes and fogs and solitude and rivers and small lakes. I think this is part. This is part of my life, and this is part what I try to reflect or describe in my cinema. I am deeply moved by cinema of Andrei Tarkovsky. He had the biggest influence in my life, or Sergei Parajanov. And also I have these brilliant teachers who actually brought me to these aesthetics of black and white, though some of my new films are colored, but I still coming from this aesthetic of black and white, long shots and beautiful landscapes. This is something that is part of my life and part of my understanding of beauty.
Thank you so much, Audrius. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your film. Thanks, Lekha and BIC. We are exactly 5 minutes over, so thank you for giving us that. And
thank you, and hope to see you in real life, all of you.
We hope we will see you in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And so, Lekha, do we all just have you? Are you there, Lekha? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for this lovely conversation. We've just shared a link to a website where you can watch more of Audrius's films and some of other films as well.
It's free and it's a good quality. Just go to English section of this, where you can find subtitles in the films you need. Okay, so I say goodbye and see you later, and stay safe and healthy.
You too.
Yeah, bye.